Hello. Good morning, 7th graders. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about finding square roots. All right. So one thing you want to keep in mind is when you look at a symbol like this is not indicating division. All right. So be careful of that. This sign that goes over top of the one is actually called a radical sign. Okay. It indicates that you are to find what number times itself will equal this number inside this radical sign. So this is pretty simple here, this first one. So what number times itself is 1? So that means the square root of 1 really is 1. All right, so the answer is 1. Now this is not a division problem, so you're not putting an answer up top of here like you would like in a long division problem. All right, now sometimes you're asked to find the two square roots of a number. That just means what positive number times itself is equal to this number, and what negative number times itself is also equal to that number. And when you're asked to find the two square roots, a lot of times you will see a plus and minus sign out there in the front. And that means give the positive square root of 1 and the negative square root of 1. So we know that 1 times 1 does equal 1, but also negative 1 times negative 1 also equals 1. So if you're asked to find the two square roots of a number, you want to give the positive and the negative of that answer. So here it would be 1 and negative 1. Okay? Because if you square either one of those, you'll get a positive 1. Okay. Now, if you have a fraction inside of your radical sign, and you also have a positive and negative sign out in the front, so you know you're going to have to give two answers here, a positive square root and a negative square root. So here's how you can break this down. In the beginning here, it's a little confusing. So this really means the square root of 4 over the square root of 25. Okay, and these are both perfect squares, which means they both have a square root that's not a decimal. Okay, so the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 25, or what number times itself is 25, is 5. Now, if it asks you, though, to give the positive and negative square roots, your answer actually would be positive 2/5 and negative 2/5, because negative 2/5 times negative 2/5 also is 4/25. Okay, now moving on to when there is a decimal in your radical. Okay, so right here we're being asked to find the square root of 1 and 21/100ths. Looks really, really difficult. What I want you to do here, just to think of this in easier terms, ignore the decimal point. Okay, and 121 is a perfect square. The square root of 121 is 11, okay, because 11 times 11 is 121. Now, you know if you multiply two numbers that have decimal points in them, in the answer, the decimal place goes the number of places, that's the total number of decimal places in your problem. So in this one, it would be 1.1 as your answer, because 1.1 times another 1.1, okay, really is 1.21. Okay, and I kind of skipped a step in there, but if you went to do it out long ways, you would know 11 times 11 is 121, and both of these have one decimal place in them, so in the answer you would have two decimal places. All right, we're going to do a few more examples together. Okay, so this one says give the positive and negative square roots of 25. So it would be a positive 5 because 5 times 5 is 25, and it would also be a negative 5 because negative 5 times negative 5 is also 25. Okay, all right, this one, pretty easy now. Okay, you know that 64 is a perfect square. The square root of 64 is 8. If you have these two symbols out here, it means to give the positive and negative square roots of 64. So it's 8 and negative 8. And then this one should kind of get a little easier now. You know that 36 is a perfect square. The square root of 36 is 6. But if you notice, there are 2 decimal places in this number, which means the square root would have 1 decimal place in it. So if I go like that, I know that 0.6 times 0.6 is 0.36. So if there are 2 decimal places here, the square root will have 1 decimal place, okay? Because once you multiply that by itself, the answer would have 2 decimal places. Okay, hope that helps. Now, before I go on, I just want to do a little reminder. In your assignment on Google Docs, in Google Classroom, there is also, I included an attachment with the first 30 perfect squares. I highly recommend you get used to knowing all of those, if not at least the first 20 perfect squares. And then after that, there are a bunch that keep coming up over and over and over when you're doing work with these. So you'll catch on to that. Okay, next, we're going to just look at a few expressions that have square roots in them. Okay, so this first one says 5 square root of 36 plus 7. Okay, so this just means 5 times, almost like when you see 5x, you know that means 5 times x. Well, this means 5 times the square root of 36. Well, the square root of 36 is 6. Okay, and 5 times that would give you 30. And then we add 7, and the answer is 37. These are kind of fun when you get used to with them a little bit. All right, this next one, little tricky, okay? Once again, here's a fraction inside of your radical. So one thing I'd recommend is this. First look and see, are these 2 numbers both perfect squares, like they were in this example right here? Okay, where the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of 25 is 5. They were both perfect squares. Okay, so that worked out very nicely. Sometimes it's going to happen like this, where they're not going to be perfect squares. But there is something you can do. Okay, if you look at 18 halves, you can just reduce 18 halves to 9. It doesn't mean I found the square root of anything yet. I'm just renaming what's inside of here. So I'm just going to rename this as 9. And the square root symbol is still there because 9 means the same as 18 halves. Okay? And now you know that the square root of 9 is 3. So we just take 3 plus 1/4, and the answer is 3 1/4. Okay? All right. Last one for this short little video here is this last one. And a lot of kids are going to be tempted to do 12 minus 3 first. Please be careful of that. You want to still follow the order of operations. Okay? So, yes, there are no parentheses. There are no exponents. Okay? But m comes next. This means multiplication right here. This means 3 times the square root of 25. Okay? So the square root of 25 is 5. And 3 times that, so here's what you have. If I gave you just this, 12 minus 3 times 5, you would know to do multiplication first. So 3 times 5 is going to give us 15. Okay? And then we have 12 here in the front. So don't do 15 minus 12 and get 3. This is really 12 because that came first. Minus 15, and you can do keep, change, and you know the answer would be -3. Okay, this is just a quick taste. Please go into Google Classroom and follow the assignment on there. Hopefully this gave you a few pointers of where to start with these, and we're going to be having some fun working with square roots. Okay, have a good day.